cr101radio.com, podcasts, and more. And welcome back to another episode of Preschool Pioneers. I'm your host, Jeremy Walker. You can follow us on our parent network, CR101 Radio, on social media such as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And of course, you can subscribe to this podcast on your preferred platform so you never miss an episode. Visit cr101radio.com for these links. Well, welcome back, everybody, to Preschool Pioneers, episode number 2. It is entitled, B is for Behavior, How Parents Are Destroying Their Children and Their Futures. Well, if you are new to Preschool Pioneers, I want to welcome you for the first time. If you are not new, welcome back. My name is Jeremy Walker. I have been married for almost 25 years now. I'm a Christian minister, 11 children. I have 6 girls, 5 boys. I've been working professionally in the early childhood education field, preschools and otherwise, for many, many years now, going on about 25 years as well. And so I am an expert. That's right. I am an expert in everything having to do with children and childcare and what makes children tick. That's right. I'm an expert. Why not? Everybody else is claiming to be an expert. Why not somebody with 11 children, 25 years of marriage, and having raised grown children and now having grandchildren? I am an expert, working professionally with children in the field of early childhood education, thousands of children coming through my doors, thousands of families, thousands of parents, and I've gotten to see pretty much everything. So you are talking to a virtual, perfect, experienced person. I'm an expert. That's right. I'm an expert. So we're going to be talking today about something that I'd like you to learn, and hopefully we can educate those people out there that are Christian teachers or budding, possibly wanting to be Christian teachers, Christian parents, fathers, mothers. This is for you. And so let's get started. I want to share a verse. Proverbs 29:15 and 17. Quote, "The rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself bringeth his mother to shame." And verse 17, "Correct thy son, and he shall give thee rest. Yea, he shall give delight unto thy soul." Unquote. I'd like to start this episode by speaking on the subject titled this, at least to begin. There are no bad children, but there are bad parents. And this is very important. This also goes for bad teachers. We've kind of gotten away from the idea of good and bad. We kind of got a spectrum, if you will, where you're going to not really be on the left, not be on the right. You're just going to be somewhere in the middle. We're all just doing our best. Why? No one wants to be judgmental. Being judgmental is the worst thing you could ever do to somebody. After all, how dare you have a standard? Everybody should be able to have their own standard, evaluate themselves based on whatever that standard is, and everybody's supposed to go along with it. Well, let me ask you a question. How well is that going for us? By playing that we aren't all judgmental, does it mean that we're not judgmental? By we all playing that we're not judgmental, does that mean that the people that we see, we don't evaluate them based on that? The real question isn't about being judgmental, meaning deciphering one from the other. The question is what are we using as the judge? Is it our personal preference? Is it our education? Is it our religious beliefs? What is it that we're using? But what we should be using is the Bible. The Word of God and the law of God should be our standard and our basis for deciding what is good and what is bad. The main problem is that, well, frankly speaking, in all institutions across the United States in particular and around the world, there is a religious foundation. It's just not Christianity. That's right. Every educational facility and institution in the world and in the U.S. is religious in nature because they are teaching a set of morals. The only question is whose morals? Who gets to set the standard? As Christian teachers and as Christian parents, we're supposed to be saying, well, the Word of God is our standard. That's where we're going to be going. How do I know if I'm a good parent? How do I know if I'm a bad parent? How do I know how to improve it? How do I know where I need to improve? Well, these are all very good questions. I want to touch on something because behavior is the main focus. And working in the institution of child care facilities and the religious and or educational field as long as I have, one thing I've noticed is that children have been getting worse. That's right, not better, they're getting worse. And is it that children are changing? Well, no, they're not. Children have never changed. The same thing that happens when children are born 2,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago, is the same thing that's happening today. Because children are born as they are. They're fallen creatures. As we know from the Bible, we know that children are born with what we call, or the Bible calls, a sin nature, a proclivity to break the commandments of God. What does that mean? Well, simply put, they don't want to listen to anybody. That's right, it's the original sin from the Garden of Eden, Genesis 3:5. I want to determine for myself what is right and what is wrong. Nobody else out there can tell me what to do. Keep your opinions to yourself. I will determine for myself if I am good or if I am not, and if you are good and if you are not. So let's go ahead and start with that basis right there, is that children are born natural rebels against all authority, period. And therefore it means that children, all children, must be taught what is good and what is bad, and it's not based on their personal set of opinions. There is a standard out there. It's not the mommy. It's not the daddy. It's not the church. It's not the city. It's not the state. It's not the country. It's God. God has given us his law, and that is to be the standard by which we mold ourselves. And as instructors and education teachers, and as parents, mom and dad, that is your goal, to mold your child to fit what God says is the right way to live in his world. Not the world, but God's world. Very important to start with the standard. And sadly to speak, most people understand that they are molding children. Very much so. They know they are molding children. This is why tyrannical governments and more, the perverts out there of the world, go after children. Why is it they're going after children? They want to mold the children to believe that perversions are good, right, and normal, and natural. Or the government, a tyrannical one, wants children to learn that there is no God. The standard of right and wrong comes from them. And so if children want to know what is right and wrong, simple. Are you listening to us or are you not? It's that simple. And it's not actually wrong in certain aspect because God does the same thing. Are you listening to God or are you not? If you're listening to God, you are good. If you're not, then you are bad. The tyrannical government would say, are you listening to us? Then you're good. If you're not, then you're bad. The perverts of the world who are trying to teach children about their perverted morals. If you're listening to them, then you're good. If you oppose their views and what they're trying to teach you, then you're bad. Everybody has the same standard. The only question is, which standard are you going to follow? And as Christian parents and Christian teachers, you can't lose sight of that. You don't stop having a moral standard and a place of authority. The only thing is, if you're not teaching the correct one, it will shift. Maybe it's you. You replace God's law with your own points of view, or your denomination, or your church, or your whatever. But you never get away with it. So let's start with, then, that standard. Our standard is going to be, speaking from this perspective, that God's commandments, God's law, is the authority, and it is the standard by which we should be molding children to fit and be in line with that. But what happens then when parents refuse to train or discipline their children? What happens to them? What are the aspects when they aren't teaching them to follow God's commandments, right? They're not giving them discipline. Discipline means to teach you into a form of trade, to get you good at something. Other types of discipline isn't just punishment. Disciplines can be the discipline of carpentry. You learn how to be a carpenter. Or the discipline of being a plumber. A discipline is a thing that you're trained in how to do it. And in the case we're talking about, self-control and the rest, we're training the children how to live successfully, morally, in this world. It is a discipline of life in all of its aspects and how to deal with everything. And so if parents refuse to train their children properly, what are some of the things that happen? Well, first of all, to start with, it frustrates the child. You will never see a more frustrated child, upset, angry child than a child who is not taught that they need to listen to somebody other than themselves. I'm in the preschool world, man. I tell you, this is number one. When parents do not give their children the proper view that they have to listen to somebody, the mom, the dad, the teacher, the whatever. These are the most angry, upset children in the world. Get people all the time, the experts out there. It's kind of why I opened this up. The humanist experts out there, the psychologists out there, the behavioral experts out there would say, well, you just have to let the child make his own choices. Don't be an authority figure. Don't tell him what to do. No, the child needs restraint. The child knows he needs restraint internally. Spiritually speaking, he knows what he needs, and you're refusing to give it to him. And therefore, if you're not going to exert authority, he sure is going to. And then all of a sudden, when you try to backpedal, he's doing something now that's a problem. You try to step in now, and you try to be the authority figure. You try to teach him that he has to listen to his parents. You have to listen to a teacher. There's certain things you can't do to your friends and other people, certain ways you can't act in the grocery store. You think that's going to go over well? It's not. It's going to frustrate them. You are actually damaging the child by refusing to exert godly authority and train and disciple the child in the way that they're supposed to live under God. The second part is you anger them. Very much so. In the child care field, children get super angry, throw things, try to kick you, try to cuss you out, spit on you, bite you, destroy an office or a classroom, attack other students. Why do they do this? Because you are literally impeding on their sovereignty. By trying to now tell the child they can't do something, you are now literally stealing from them. You're literally in a form trying to kidnap their personality. And they lash out because you are doing something wrong and they have the right to oppose you. Because why? This is what you've taught them. You've refused to train them properly. You're breaking your child. That anger that you see is normal because they don't understand what's going on. They become like the feral animal, and you're all of a sudden trying to trap them, and they don't get it, and they lash out at you. It's not the child's fault. That's actually normal behavior for them. You've refused to, if you're the parent, the teacher, or other people, to give them the proper view of why this is happening. No one's trying to hurt you, just trying to help you, try to prosper you in the future. But that's not how they see it. See, you cripple the child's perception of reality. Their perception of reality is I can do anything I want, whenever I want, to whomever I want. And if there's a problem, the problem's not me. It's you or someone else. The world has to change to fit me and what I want. I don't have to change to fit the world or what is necessary. You are the problem. I'm not. And when we don't, as Christian parents, Christian teachers, give the child the proper perception of reality, they are a creature designed under God with duties and dominion, responsibilities, and of course can be rewarded. And there's punishments. The child cannot view the world properly, which of course goes back to frustration and anger. When you don't properly teach your children, you ensure the child is unable to function as an independent person that is self-controlled and, of course, can live as an individual without oversight. These children that we see in childcare, we see them every day, that come in with no concept of God, no concept of God's law, no concept of authority where parents are concerned, no concept of authority where teachers are concerned. They've been never required to control themselves or be told no without lashing out. These children can never grow, be independent, control themselves, and live without oversight. We see it every day. Why do you think that the news is riddled with young people who are getting arrested, even shot? You know what people are doing right now instead of teaching children to control themselves? They're giving them drugs. That's right. When I was growing up, we were told drugs are bad. Now they're being told, well, of course, and I had this conversation with somebody recently. Well, my child, if he doesn't have his medication, this is the way he acts. He is uncontrolled. He throws things. He will try to bite you. He will try to attack you. But if we just give him his meds, if we just give him his medication, then Johnny becomes a good boy. No, Johnny does not become a good boy. What you've done is drugged the child to where he literally cannot comprehend where he's at and what he's doing, and you've dulled his senses only to temporarily calm down the beast that is trying to get out. And then as soon as those medications wear off, he is going to lash out and try to attack you again. It's the same as if you're going to trank a wild bear and stick it in the classroom and say, well, the bear is really cuddly and kind as long as we keep him tranked. But if the tranks wear off, he's probably going to maul everybody in the classroom and kill everybody. But hey, perfectly fine. Just have to keep tranking him and he's going to be just fine. No, this is horrible. This is evil. Children do not need to be drugged into compliance. That is called child abuse. Let me say that again. Putting children on drugs is called child abuse. I don't care if a doctor recommended it. I don't care if there are people who call themselves professionals have recommended this. These people hate you. They hate your child, and they want them never, ever, ever to grow up and become a successful individual who has self-control and can live a successful life without somebody watching over them. It also, when you don't discipline your child, cripples their ability to have personal connections. These children coming in our doors, they are lone wolves. They don't care about anyone or anything, and they grow up that way. And they go through their entire life the same way, not caring about anyone or anything. That means family, friends, possible spouse, and if they do foster children, I mean they have children of their own, they will not take care of them. They'll see them as burdens. They'll see their spouse as somebody who's trying to weigh them down. They'll see their friends and family, people trying to restrain them when they don't have the right to do so. Everybody is out to hurt them because why? They won't allow me to live however I want. They're broken people because we have crippled their ability to see the world. See, we cripple their ability to be productive. People can't hold down jobs. These young folk, they cannot hold down jobs. They cannot financially provide for themselves. There are so many young folk who are now adults who their parents did such a poor, horrible job that now the parents are probably are supporting the children and they're taking care of the grandchildren now. And they consider this to be a good thing. This is not a good thing. This is a terrible thing. These children have never been able to get off the ground. This is a failure to launch. And the failure to launch rests almost exclusively on the shoulders of the parents. A large part of that is if there's a school involved who's also failing to help those children learn how the real world works, partnering with those parents. We have to make sure that our children can influence society in a positive way, all the people around them. But is that what you see? Do you see people growing up able to become successful members, start businesses, help people, be charitable? No, everything is me, me, me. We've entered the TikTok generation. Everybody wants 5 seconds of fame. They do not care about anyone else, and they like followers. They don't want real relationships. They tear down the relationships of every single person around them because they don't have a proper view of reality, what is real, and they want the fake. They don't want the personal. They don't want the real. They want the fake. They want to be able to go on the internet and make believe that they are popular, they're liked, and that they're good moral people when they're not. We are destroying our children. Now, see, as a Christian teacher, if you're listening to this and as a Christian parent, you get an opportunity primarily with the children in your care. If you're a parent, this is you, this is your child. You must fight to make sure your child is raised properly under God's commandments, to understand their responsibilities and primarily disciplining, meaning training them on how to live under God morally, so they can become good adults, moral adults, and you will be a good parent, somebody who did your job. Christian teachers out there, your job's very important. You better be teaching these children to obey God's commandments, and you'll be a good teacher. If not, you're going to be a bad teacher. There's only one, or there's the other. The children's, however, will they listen to you if you do a good job? Maybe, maybe not. But primarily, yes. The outcome in and of itself, their salvation is not in your hands. However, you certainly can change them on the outside. You absolutely can. You can't save children's eternal destiny, but you can affect how they act right now in this world. Now, there's a few things that I've kind of jumped on the behavior thing, And I want to switch over now, having discussed that quite a bit and why it's important that we do our jobs. I want to talk about things kind of in the news and how these things reflect and what it looks like. But first of all, I found one that says, in the news and media and whatnot, we need to start normalizing kids getting into trade schools. Why do guidance counselors only push college? Good Lord, everything this woman says is absolutely right. So it's a video of these people who go on TikTok and otherwise, and they're talking and ranting about different things. This woman was talking about trade school versus what we call traditional public school and college and things like that. Well, they're right. People are not getting, and the first episode of the season was called Apprenticeship. They're not getting practical skills, and they're even not getting academic skills anymore. And so children are having a failure to launch because they are not being prepared for the future of how to provide for themselves, which is trade school, how to make money, and they're not being educated at all. So our job is to make sure that children understand that morality is more important than knowing the 50 states in the U.S., where they need to know more about how to work and have the discipline to do that, more than need to know calculus or the periodic table. Very important. Another bit of news was a piece on Twitter I saw, and it was a woman talking to a guy who had been to Brazil for the first time, and he was trying to make friends. So this woman's in a crowd with his cell phone, and she says, "You need to put that away." He's like, "What do you mean I need to put it away?" She goes, "You're in Brazil now, and somebody's going to steal that." In other words, it was such a common thing that theft was in their culture, especially of people who were not from there, that they had to be careful because the entire culture, it was well known that they would steal from people if they could get away with it. It was just a common thing. This right here is what you have when you have individuals, schools, and societies who do not have a ground in moral ethics, God's moral ethics. You have a culture that is built on theft. It is not safe. Many countries outside the U.S. have bars to third and fourth layers in hotels and otherwise because people will sneak in, steal, and assault people because the culture and the society is so terrible that it is not safe for people without bars on their windows. See, Christianity takes that and flips it on its head and spins it around and creates a culture of moral people who do not need bars on their windows, do not need guns under their bed, and do not need police officers running to their house because somebody's going to rob them and try to kill them. The world needs morality, God's morality. The Bible says in a lot of ways that a person's culture is their religion externalized. You can tell what culture's religious basis based on looking at the culture itself. And whenever you have places like Brazil, where stealing is obviously so commonplace, it's well known, this is not a culture built on God's commandments and is not going to prosper. And do these third world countries prosper? They don't. So why is it America has prospered? Because for the most part, America has greatly been built on God's commandments, period. It's that simple. Another one for the education realm and in the news, there's this idea of these transvestite athletes where these men dress up as women, claim to be women, and enter women's sports. The meme says, the weakest men compete with girls, and the weakest minds celebrate it. Well, it goes beyond that. It's actually a malicious thing. Because who in their right minds is going to give in to the political and or otherwise nature to say that I'm going to let my girls be beat up and compete against men? That's insanity. I miss the years whenever it was known that women were off the table. I mean, they were protected at all times. Women and young girls were always protected from men and abuse from anyone. If a person was a female and they walked up and a man was there, he held the door. If a woman came up and you were sitting, you stood up and you gave it to them. It wasn't just chivalry. It was Christianity. Women are protected by God on every level where God's commandments are concerned, especially their physical safety and health. At no point in time should any culture, especially if they are a Christian culture, ever put up with the rhetoric who is going to be demeaning to women or to compare them to men. Men are not women, women are not men, and they do not have the same level of protections and or the same level of responsibilities and duties. But that's why we need the world to have Christian parents and Christian teachers, so we can teach this, flush out the heresies and the evil doctrines, and put in the good. Thank you again for joining me. Thank you, and God bless.